Welcome to Tell It. For those of you who don't know, this is our 10th year in production. And it's all because of the wonderful storytellers I've had the pleasure and honor to present. And of course, our incredible audiences throughout the years who've been so supportive. Give yourselves a big hand. My name is Pablo Marz. I'm the creator and producer of the show, and I will be your host this evening. We're going to celebrate families. Can't live with them, can't shoot them. Well, anyway.
Tell that to the Menendez.
Yes. We have a kick-ass lineup of some of LA's finest storytellers, writers, performers. So this is going to be an awesome show, and I'm just want to thank you all for being here tonight, because I know that in this town there's a million things going on almost every night. So thank you for coming out and being with us. Our first storyteller tonight, we are celebrating families, and this theme, this topic I've been doing it since we started the show. It was in the middle of the first year, and because it's our 10th year anniversary, I went back to the first year of themes and picked out some for this year. And Family Fun Time I've produced every single year, because we all have family stories, the good, the bad, the crazy. And it's always fun to hear where people have come from and what kind of people made them. All right, so we're gonna kick off this party tonight. The wonderful storyteller. She was most recently a staff writer on the CBS action-adventure spy comedy True Lies, was a fellow in the 2023 Native American Showrunner Program, the 2022 Disney Writing Program, and previously wrote on Spirit Rangers for Netflix. She's been nominated for 7 Children's and Family Emmys. She's currently writing on an upcoming educational docuseries about the history of Native Californians. She lives in LA with her husband and their much-loved rescue pup, Linus. It's so great to have her back, so please give a warm welcome to Chris Cranwelch.
The summer I was 11, during a family vacation at the Schlitterbahn Water Park in New Braunfels, Texas, I became absolutely 100% convinced that God had chosen me as the new Virgin Mary. We were headed to the water park from our room at the Holiday Inn when I made this astonishing revelation. The Schlitterbahn had the biggest water slide in the entire state of Texas, and I was so excited to get there I forgot my towel, so my dad asked me to run back to the room and get it. As I pulled it from the rack, I caught my reflection in the full-length mirror on the bathroom door, and I saw a poochy belly protruding from my favorite terry tank top. I wasn't a rail-thin kid, but I'd always had a flat stomach. Suddenly, I didn't. This could only mean one thing. Yes, somehow I was pregnant with the next Jesus Christ. I have no idea why I immediately jumped to this conclusion. I mean, I was 11. My mother had told me about sex and periods, and it was all just really gross. I hadn't done any of that stuff, and I hoped I never would. Also, church-wise, I wasn't an ideal candidate. I was Methodist, which I felt lacked the pageantry befitting a newborn king. Surely God would choose someone from a denomination that had way fancier nativity scenes and elaborate Christmas candlelight masses, like Episcopalians or Catholics. They put on a good show. I also thought Sunday school was kind of stupid, but it had taught me the basics, so I knew that Mary and I shared some things in common. 1, my birthday is December 23rd, which is right around Jesus's. 2, Mary lived in Nazareth and I lived in Houston, and both are very humid in August. And 3, Mary was just a regular gal. If it could happen to her, it could happen to anyone. I was angry with God about this new and unwelcome development. Being the next Virgin Mary was a huge responsibility, and I had a lot going on. My mother had died of cancer the year before, and we were still trying to figure out how to be a family without her. Actually, this was our first vacation without her because she planned everything. She was nice to everyone. She was the religious one. She didn't even curse when she got mad. So if God couldn't keep someone as good as my mother alive, I just wasn't sure I was on his team. But I must have been selected for a reason, so I felt compelled to take my new position seriously. When we got to the Schlitterbahn, I protected baby Jesus Jr. I walked carefully to the entrance and made sure nobody jostled me. Inside, I kept my flip-flops on so I wouldn't slip and fall. I held my towel around my stomach to avoid the sun while I waited in line, which took forever. I had a lot of time to think about my predicament, and it stunk. A biggie? There were some major drawbacks to being the new Virgin Mary. Nobody was going to believe me. My friends would think I was a slut, and then I'd be forced to eat lunch with the stoner kids who wore the fog hat t-shirts and smoked behind the gym. I wouldn't fit in my new Jordache jeans, and I'd have to give up tap class because I don't think it's safe or respectable to shuffle ball change while carrying the Lamb of God. This would ruin 7th grade for me. Also, the logistics were mind-boggling. After falling off my Uncle Clarence's mare, I was scared of horses. How was I gonna ride a camel? Would we have to sleep in a manger, and was there one close by, or would we have to travel cross country? What if I were allergic to hay? And who was gonna be Joseph? I didn't know any boys my age named Joseph. The original Joseph was an older bearded man, like Kenny Loggins. I didn't want to travel cross country on a camel and sleep in a filthy manger with Kenny Loggins. As my head nearly exploded with angst, the line parted. I thought it might be a miracle, but it was just a lifeguard moving some things along. And finally, it was the moment I'd been waiting for all summer. My turn to ride the Schlitterbahn. I climbed up the ladder. I doubt I'd even enjoy it in my condition. But once I sat down and started the ride, I forgot about everything, and I had a moment of pure kid fun. It was the first I'd had in a long while. The Schlitterbahn was exhilarating. The water whooshed down with me as I tumbled through the plastic chute, twisting and turning for what seemed to be a mile. The slide dumped me off at the bottom, and I wasn't even embarrassed when the undertow nearly tore off my bathing suit. After my sister, brother, and I played at the park for hours, my dad and grandparents took us to Shakey's for pizza and the all-you-can-eat salad bar. It had been a great day. That's when I decided I needed to make peace with God. If he wanted me to be the vessel for the next Christ child, I should be happy about it. It could be an exciting opportunity to have this really famous baby. I might become a saint. Plus, I'd probably get to be on TV. That alone would be worth it. Or maybe this wasn't God at all, but my own mother pulling some strings. Wherever she was, she had to know I missed her. And, Mary was the mother of all mothers, so maybe this was my mother giving me the chance to become a mother in the hugest way possible. Raising a savior would definitely be a good learning experience for me. I felt better about my situation, so I headed up to the salad bar for seconds. After all, I was eating for two. My grandmother followed me. It was time to fess up. I beamed up at her with what I imagined was a very serene half smile. She looked startled and asked, "What is wrong with you?" I told her my news. She stared at me for a minute and then said, "Oh, honey, you're not expecting the Messiah. You're just chubby. We'll get you some husky pants." As she walked back to the table, she told me to hold off on the Bacos and said she'd order me a Diet Coke. I wasn't sad over not being the new Virgin Mary. I was very relieved about that. But I did feel a little let down. I had spent the entire day thinking that maybe I was special or there was something, a bigger path for me. But in the end, I was just an ordinary girl with an overactive imagination and apparently a new pair of husky pants. And they fit like a dream. And although I would continue to grow out of those, There was something I would never grow out of, and that was looking for ways to stay connected to my mother. Thank you.
Give it up, Miss Farewell. Wow. Becoming the Virgin Mary. I thought I had aspirations of greatness. That's wonderful. Boy, okay. Our next storyteller is a winner of the Moth Story Slam a few different times, several times, and tells her stories at many storytelling shows, including Storytellers Project and Risk, and of course here at Tell It. Her writing appears in a variety of publications from the LA Times to Slackjaw. Kara is also an author, and tonight she's happy to give interested book lovers a free copy of her critically acclaimed new novel, Candlelight Bridge. If you love historical fiction, you have to get this book. It is fantastic, and it is an epic journey of her family and how they all came together in America to create her. So, please welcome back to the stage, Kara Lopez Lee.
So, in my childhood memories of my mother, the first image is always glamour. Maybe because I didn't grow up with her, so I knew my few photos of her better than I knew her. This perfectly poised, looked like a movie star woman with her dark hair piled on top of her head in this 1960s Audrey Hepburn beehive, a style she clung to well into the 1990s. She was a pretty, smart, funny, fairy tale kind of mommy who I always wished I could spend more time with. Instead, she decided that my father's parents should raise me, so I rarely saw her. Although I did see her every summer when, for 2 weeks, she would create magic out of nothing. I mean, this one time she took me to a fabric store where she bought me these huge sheets of chiffon fabric in purple, orange, yellow, green, so that the little neighbor girls and I could drape and pin them into, designer fashions with her faux jewelry and her little miniature wiglets piled on our heads. We looked glamorous. And afterward, I begged my mother, "Mommy, why can't I live with you?" Until she blurted, "Kara, you have to stop asking me. I can't take it anymore." I'd had adults yell at me in anger before, but never had I seen a grown-up look so wide-eyed with panic, so that I wondered if it was even safe to live with her, and I never asked her again. I was in college when her third husband called to tell me he had had her committed. And after she got out, she called me to reassure me, "Don't worry, honey. I just have this little chemical imbalance in my brain, and it makes me have these mood swings. So doctors gave me some lithium, and it evened me right out." She never used the words bipolar disorder. My Psych 101 textbook had to break that to me. The few times that I ever saw her mania, it ranged from things like her childlike enthusiasm over her latest midnight closet reorganization project, or her fear of going out in public where strangers lay in wait to poison her with hidden needles. And so I decided that I, wouldn't spend that much time with her, and my mother insisted that I mostly get to know her through long phone calls. And we became very good friends. Then one day in 2017, my mother calls me from Kansas, where she lives, to tell me that her husband of 40 years has just passed away. And I say, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, Mother. I'll fly out right away." And this offer makes my 77-year-old mother come unglued. She says, "No, I don't have any time. There's too much to do. You can't come." And I say, "Yeah, Mother, that's the idea. I'm going to come help you do those things." She says, "No, then I'll have to explain it to you, and it'll just get harder. Promise you won't come." And I say, okay. But I gently keep offering until one day a hospital calls me to tell me they have my mother. And I'm thinking, psych ward. But no, they say she has heart failure and acute confusion, which is their euphemism for dementia. And I fly right out to Kansas. And when I think I'm gonna, at 55, finally get this mother-daughter bonding time that I have always waited for. But when I arrive in her hospital room, I can see that I have waited a little too long. It looks like all the madness that she has been struggling to hide for years is exploding out the top of her head. Her white hair is in this sort of swirling tangle of tiny little braids and ponytails that are in such disarray. She looks like a demented 2,000-year-old I Dream of Jeannie, who was 2,000, by the way. And there's this one chunk of hair that is so ratted that it looks like a cat's hairball, and I cannot get a comb through this thing. And so finally, I just have to cut it out like hair with gum in it. And now she has this big bald spot. But she insists that I gather the few surviving strands into this little tiny wispy ponytail on top of her head. And after that, there is no putting this Jeannie back in her bottle. Her home, which is this charming farmhouse that is aggressively tidy, is nonetheless overrun with a family of field mice, more than 36 bottles of witch hazel, and more than 100 spiral-bound notebooks filled with her scribbles of everything she's been doing every minute for the past 20 years. For example, clean eye area, put on eye makeup, make coffee, fix front of hair, brush teeth, take 2 cups of coffee to my husband, talk to him for 20, wash my chin. Wash her chin? I move her to an assisted living facility across the country, about 10 minutes from my house in Ventura, California, so that I can look out for her. And the night before I move her into this new place, I let her stay at my house with my husband and me, and I try to make her look a little less alarming for her new neighbors. I take her to the bathroom sink where I wash like 2 months worth of flaky white hairspray from her greasy hair. And she loves this. She says, "Oh, would you please scritch my head? Oh, that feels so great." You know, and I love that too, that feeling of my scalp massaged by hands other than my own. And I just want to live in this moment. And then she puts her hair back into the little fountain ponytail and says, "Do you have hairspray?" And she's dismayed that all I have is this stuff called product. But in some confusion, she takes this purple goop and just pats it into the tips of her bangs until they look exactly the same, which is the point, you know, to have one thing in her life that's not going to change. Actually, 2 things. So every single day, she wears the exact same outfit, this blue denim jumper dress with a little white blouse with a Peter Pan collar. And think of like a cross between Little House on the Prairie and Hippie Flower Child. And every day I ask her, "So, Mother, do you think you might change clothes tomorrow?" And she says, "Why? This outfit makes me feel normal." And I say, "Well, you know, it's a little odd to wear the same clothes for 2 months." She says, "Well, I am odd, and people might as well get used to it." She has a point. So finally, one day I go to pick her up to take her to a cardiology appointment. And when I get to the door, I see her ponytail is like listing sideways. Like it's as exhausted as she is by the sheer effort to stand up. And I think, okay, I can't make her change that schoolgirl outfit, but I can fix that damn little ponytail. So I sit her on the toilet and I pull the ponytail holder out and I take out like 36 bobby pins and I start combing her hair. And then my phone rings and it's somebody calling about her estate, which is in way more disarray than her hair. So I drop the hair and take the call, except then my mother starts to fall off the toilet. So I drop the call, grab the hair. I'm like, I've just got to slap this ponytail together and get her the hell to the doctor. Except I've lost the thing. I can't find the thingy. So I've lost her ponytail holder. And I, in a total panic, turned that bathroom upside down. I'll admit, I'm a little manic. I mean, let's face it, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And so when she sees me on my hands and knees crawling around, she says, "What are you doing?" And I admit to her, I lost your ponytail holder. To which she replies, "Oh no! Oh my God! What are we gonna do?" My mother's whole body is failing. Like, heart is failing, kidneys are failing, her brain is failing, but this doomed ponytail is like the last straw for both of us. And now, my mother's not at all what I'd call a church-going woman, but right there on the toilet, she bursts into fervent prayer. "God, please help us," which is really sweet, but she won't stop. "God, please help us. God, please help us." And I'm thinking, should I just give up on the ponytail? Will she freak out more? "God, please help us." I say, "Mother, that's not helping." I mean, the praying, it's great, but maybe silently, I'm trying to think. And so she shuts up, just as I fling open the medicine cabinet door, and what should fly into my face but a dozen brand new ponytail holders, which I've never seen before. I didn't buy these, and I think, wow, could she have practiced this power to perform miracles before? Say 45 years ago, when I had to stop her from jumping out of the boat on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland because she was scared. Not of the animatronic pirates, although they are kind of creepy, but of the dark. And I was more scared than her because I was 10 and she was supposed to be taking care of me. But that was the first time in my life I was grateful to my mother for having the wisdom not to raise me. And it's what made me the woman standing in this bathroom, able to recognize I can't control this situation. And my mother is the one with the right idea. Just pray for something small, a tiny piece of elastic. Because let's face it, she is never going to be normal, and neither am I. But right now, we're smiling at each other in the mirror because I have made her a little I Dream of Jeannie ponytail that makes her feel normal. And for now, that's enough. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Wow. My mom had obsessions like that too. She had dementia. And she would get obsessed about folding things, putting things in order, whether they were papers or napkins, or we could give her a stack of towels and she would spend hours just unfolding and folding and unfolding and folding. You know? It's that order thing. It's amazing. All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right, our next storyteller is a 4-time Moth champion and the producer of It's Funny Now, a wonderful storytelling show featuring stories that are embarrassing, cringy, maybe even shameful, but they're funny now. The show just celebrated its 2nd year in production, so congratulations, Frank. Please welcome back to Tell It, the wonderful producer and storyteller, Frank Trainer.
I didn't cry when I found out that my mother had only 6 weeks left to live. It was on April 1st, 2009, back in my hometown of Buenos Aires, Argentina, where my mother was rushed to the hospital early that day, and I arrived in the afternoon, and my sister takes me out of the room and tells me that the doctor said that she has brain cancer and lung cancer, and there's nothing we can do. 6 weeks. My sister starts crying right away, and I hug her, but I don't cry. My father died some years before that, and his death was really hard on my entire family, so I wasn't going to let that happen again. I was going to be strong for everyone in my family, like a real man with the power of inappropriate jokes. My mom's 6 weeks actually went by pretty well. She didn't suffer. They were kind of fun. In fact, one night I get her drunk on her favorite thing, which is red wine, and it's so much fun, but my sister gets super weird, and it's just like, "What are you doing? Don't get her drunk!" And I'm like, well, what's the worst thing that you think can happen to her right now? Getting my mom drunk is so fun that I'm still not crying like a real man that I am. And then eventually on Saturday, May 9th, exactly 6 weeks after she was diagnosed, my mother slowly starts to go. And it's actually a pretty beautiful moment. Her entire family, or her 7 children and 25 grandchildren, gather around her bed, and we just wait. Now, I don't know if you have ever seen someone dying like that, but what happens is that your body slowly starts to shut off, and eventually you get apneas, which means that every breath you take is exponentially deeper, but also farther from the one before. And it gets to a point where you don't know which one is the last one. Basically, what my mom is doing in her dying bed is going like this. And it gets to a point where they're so sparse that the entire room, my entire family, is in absolute silence. And the only thing you can hear is my mom going every couple of minutes. And everyone needs to come back. I need to come back because she might be going, but we're still here. I need to come back because I'm not gonna cry. Not now. I've been holding it inside for 6 weeks. I can keep going a little longer. So after one of those apneas, I just look at my mom and I go, die, you fucking tease! Die already! My entire family breaks into laughter right away. Finally, me hiding my feelings is doing some good work. I'm a real man. Eventually, one of those apneas is the last one, and my mom dies, and I still don't die. By the next morning, my mother is already all made up and in her coffin ready for her wake, according to Argentinian tradition. The only issue is that one of the 4 legs of the stand where my mom's coffin is placed is a little shorter than the rest, which causes the whole thing to wiggle if you just barely caress the coffin, which also causes my mom's head to go from side to side every time you touch it. And then my friend Matias approaches my mom to say goodbye. Now, Matias is like a brother to me. We grew up together. My mom loved him like a son. And he recently announced that he's getting married. And my mom never got to find out. So he approaches my mom. I approach from the other side. And I look at my mom and I go, Mom, can you believe it? Matias told us he's getting married. And as my friend looks at my mom with love and sadness in his eyes, I very gently put my hand on the coffin and I start pushing it, which causes my mom's head to move from side to side. And like a ventriloquist, I start going, no, don't do it. Marriage is a mistake. Don't get married. Don't do it. Don't get married. My friend is freaking the fuck out, but I'm having the time of my life. It's so funny. I do that the rest of the day with everybody who approaches my mom. Finding excuses to tell my mom something about them that would cause her to say no to them. And it's so funny to me, but nobody else thinks it's funny. But they're busy crying. What did they know? So I'm busy here being strong for everybody with my jokes like a real man. The next day, my mom is cremated, and that is the end of it, I think. But 2 days later, on Tuesday, I'm rushed to the hospital where they tell me at the ER that I have an emphysema and have to stay in the ICU for 48 hours, and I cannot talk to anybody. So they give me a notepad and a marker to communicate with the world. And then I text my 6 siblings in the morning, hey, remember how mom died like the other day? Well, guess who's in the hospital now with an emphysema? LOL. So my sister rushes to the hospital and she's with me when I'm talking to the doctor. And the doctor tells me, do you smoke? And I'm like, I write yes on the notepad. And before I'm done, my sister goes, yes, and not just cigarettes, he smokes marijuana too. Which, you know, the doctor is like giving her this look of like, I don't really care, lady. But she doesn't see it because she's looking at me like she's like rejoicing in herself, telling me with her eyes, see, I just told the doctor you do drugs. And then the doctor tells me, well, in young, healthy men like you, cases like this are usually psychosomatic when you go through a lot of stress and you repress a lot of emotions. Have you been under any stress lately? And I start writing yes on the notepad again. And I know that I could have just circled probably the first yes, but again, my sister just told the doctor, I'm a pothead. I don't know what I'm doing half of the time, so I do what I can. So before I'm done again, my sister goes, yes, our mom just died, and he never cried. And I never did. I never cried. Time went by without me crying because I'm a real man, and I met a wonderful woman, Martina, who I ended up marrying, and we moved to the United States where we adopted 3 cats we treat like children, and we had 2 children we treat like cats. And when my daughter was old enough, I told her about my mom and everything about her and what happened to her, and I thought she understood everything about it. But then one day, over dinner, I tell her that, you know, hey, soon for the first time, we're going to go to Argentina, and you're going to get to meet the whole family. And my daughter gets so excited, and she looks at me and goes, Dad, when we go to Argentina, I want to meet your mom. My daughter doesn't understand that my mother is dead because clearly I haven't done enough. Clearly I haven't been open enough about everything that happened. Clearly I'm still hiding my feelings deep inside, to the point where she doesn't even know that her grandmother is dead and she is dying to meet her. I can't breathe. I can't talk. But I finally cry. And it's loud and full of snot and heavy tears, and and it's confusing to my daughter. My wife is like, don't worry, honey, I'll explain to you later. Because it's not funny anymore when I realize that my mother is never going to meet her favorite grandchildren. It's not funny anymore when I realize that the kind of man that I want to be for my children is the kind of man that lives through all his feelings, no matter what, good or bad. The kind of man that knows that it's okay to not be in control all the time. The kind of man that knows that it's okay to be sad, to cry. The kind of man that knows what it is to be a real man. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of you know that my mom passed away in June. I took care of her for like 6 years. And I just want to thank everybody who reached out and said the comforting words that they texted and wrote and called, and all the wonderful comments and observations. And for those of you who met her, she was quite a woman. So thank you, Frank. Thanks for sharing that. All right, our next storyteller is a writer whose stories have appeared in the Los Angeles Times, Salon, Women's Day, Next Avenue, The Ethel, The Girlfriend, and Your Tango. She's a writer and editor on Medium. Her book, Ask Me About My Cats, will be published later this year. Returning to the stage after a 4-year hiatus, writer-performer Christine Schoenwald. Let's give it up. Good?
Yep.
Okay.
And this is.
Okay. There we go.
100% professional. When I was 13, my brother Fritz brought his girlfriend Lucille home to meet the family. He'd never done this before. What we didn't know at the time was that by welcoming Lucille in, it was a lot like inviting a vampire into one's home. However, instead of sucking our blood, she'd just drain us of our patience and energy. I know Lucille will bug the crap out of me for all eternity. Thank you, Fritz, for that. I'm fuzzy about how they met. Were they following the same Tai Chi master? Did they meet cute at the macrobiotic food co-op? Or did they just share the same drug dealer? I don't know. Whatever it was probably the standard way free spirits met in 1970s San Francisco. Fritz was 8 years older than me, and Lucille a couple of years older than him, which should have made her sophisticated, but just made her odd. She was tall and slender, with a long horse face and tiny hamster teeth. The most remarkable thing about Lucille is her awful personality. She consistently says the exact wrong thing, makes every situation worse, and is tenacious like a bulldog. You can ask her not to do something until you're blue in the face, but if she's already focused on it, she'll continue to hammer on until you want to pull out all your hair, and hers. By the time Fritz and Lucille met, she was already on SSI and he had been diagnosed as schizophrenic, so that was fun. Lucille had been Yoko Ono's ex-husband's nanny after he abducted the couple's little girl and went underground. This was after John and Yoko had kidnapped her first. It was all extremely dramatic and a situation I'm sure Lucille only made worse with her presence. It's a gift. After her stint as a nanny, Lucille found some work as a companion / hanger-on to singer-songwriter Cat Stevens. If you want to blame someone for Cat's conversion to Islam, blame Lucille. The way I picture it is, one day he casually mentioned an interest in Islam. The next thing you know, she's bringing up his conversion at every opportunity until he converted just to shut her the fuck up. Although Fritz and I weren't especially close, Lucille decided it would be good to cultivate me as an ally, and thus began a losing campaign to win me over that continues to this day. At the time, and now, I was more interested in hanging around with my friends than of being a potential sister-in-law. But that didn't deter Lucille. Oh, no. She insisted on spending some quality time with me, whether I liked it or not. For our first excursion, we went to Japantown, a charming neighborhood in San Jose that still exists. By the way, don't come at me. That's what it's called, Japantown. San Jose isn't known for its creative neighborhood naming. Downtown, East San Jose, and Rose Garden. And yes, there's a Rose Garden. That afternoon, Lucille and I shopped at Shiseido's store, which confused everyone, had lunch, and then for dessert, Lucille brought me some special pastries at an authentic Japanese bakery. I may have considered myself to have a sophisticated palate. After all, I ate falafels and knew how to pronounce the word. But I wasn't ready for the beautiful red bean pastries. I took one bite and spit it out in the gutter. Not my finest moment. Strike one. Since the Japantown excursion wasn't a success, Lucille decided to go in a different direction for our next encounter. Let me set the scene. It was a lovely afternoon. The sun was shining. There was a cool breeze wafting through the curtains, and my parents were sitting in the living room, completely unaware of the horrors that awaited them. Lucille came into the room and opened a large Mary Poppins-esque bag, but instead of pulling out a plant, a mirror, and a hat rack, Lucille pulled out vibrators and dildos. She'd obviously put some thought into what to bring, as there was an impressive selection of shapes, sizes, colors, and materials. There were even oversized dildos that appeared dangerous to the user. Let me say here that my family didn't have open and frank discussions about sex. I didn't even get the sex talk from either parent. I had to go find out from the neighbor girl. So it was already extra embarrassing when Lucille brought out the sex toys. But it went to next level humiliation when she morphed into some kind of door-to-door dildo salesperson. I've got dildos, two-headed dildos, with or without balls, inflatable, vibrating, and even squirting. Want veined ones? We got them. Girthy, double-headed? We got them. Come one, come all. It's the dildo bonanza. Or maybe it wasn't that bad, but that's how it sounded to my preteen ear. You get a dildo, and you get a dildo, and you get a dildo. Since Lucille is notoriously bad at reading a room, she proceeded to plug them in and turn on all the vibrators. The now fully engaged vibrators were spinning off the tables, and two spun around like deranged Catherine wheels. Over near the stereo, two vibrators appeared to be dueling each other, and the one by the couch went up and down on its own. But that didn't beat the one on the floor that wriggled like it was a snake digesting a mouse. Oh, and the noise. It's the sound of an army of vibrators that I'll remember the most. You see, in the 1970s, they hadn't yet perfected noiseless vibrators. And these were so loud, they sounded like a cacophony of planes taking off and high-powered jackhammers. It was so loud, it almost drowned Lucille out when she asked me if I wanted to try some of the vibrators and dildos. No, Lucille, I do not wish to pleasure myself in front of my parents. I wish the floor of our living room would open and swallow me up whole, but our wall-to-wall green carpet stayed in one piece. My proper father left the room without saying a word, but my mother continued to sit there, stunned. Eventually, Lucille realized she wasn't getting the desired response and began to put away her collection. I do have to admit, it was amusing watching Lucille run after the vibrator trying to make a break for it. Strike two. The next time Lucille came for a visit, she brought me some books. Books are good. Books are our superpower. I don't know what you're into, but you might like some of these, she said, presenting me with The Joy of Sex, More Joy of Sex, The Joy of Gay Sex, and The Sensuous Man. The Joy of Gay Sex, Sensual Man? Know your audience, Lucille. I thanked her for the books and took them the next day to the used bookstore downtown, where I sold them for fast food money. Yes, a Jumbo Jack with cheese and a Coke were much more valuable to me at the time than books with hairy 70s people doing the nasty. After striking out 3 times, Lucille retreated somewhat from her campaign to become my new bestie. Now, decades later, my parents and my brother are gone, but Lucille remains in my life. Yippee! Thanks, Fritz. Thanks for that. Shortly before he died, but after they got a divorce, Lucille became a Jehovah's Witness. Annoy people door to door, Lucille has finally found her tribe. These days, instead of inappropriate sex talk, she'll sneak in fun stories about Jesus or Bible quotes in hopes of saving my soul. Honestly, I liked the dildos and the dueling vibrators better. Thank you.
Give it up, Christine Stonewall. Wow. Oh, yes. 70s porn. That's, we should have had a table with, like demonstrations. No, okay. All right.
Next time.
Yes. Thank you. That was wild. So it's intermission now. So please enjoy some refreshments out there. The restroom is right there. And we'll be back as soon as the line is gone. Thank you. Welcome back. All right, before we continue, I just want to remind everybody we do have an email list. So if you're not on it, please get on the email list so we can let you know what's happening. Our next show is I Will Survive, and it's October 19th. We have a great lineup of storytellers for that show, and the stories are going to be pretty wild because they're all about survival. You will see the books out there. Kara's book, Candlelight Bridge, that she's giving away for free. Come on. And our next storyteller has a book too, and it's called Relatively Painless. Wow. And you'll find out more about him. Yes, he is our next storyteller. All right, so moving on. Dylan Brody has been entertaining audiences professionally for more than 40 years. At 17, he became a regular at New York City's Original Improvisation, and he began garnering TV appearances in his mid-20s. Brody's production and literary company, Active Voice Productions, offers support and collaboration and literary material and production expertise to bring intentional, artistic work to the profit-driven entertainment landscape. A humorist and storyteller, playwright, award-winning filmmaker, and poet, please welcome to the stage, Dylan Brody. We're grateful to have him back. Perfectly done.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of my target demographic. I have several copies of this to sell this evening. They cost $15 or any other amount you wish to spend. I do this so that if there's a college student who has 38 cents in his pocket, he can get a book, and I can live in hope that someone will give me $4,930 for a paperback. I am delighted to be delivering this particular story this evening. I chose it specifically for Amy Englehart's birthday. You're quite welcome. Before my parents visited, I sent them an email. Any visit to the Brody household, I told them, comes with advance instructions. When you arrive at the front door, you will be greeted by dogs. You must completely ignore Sir Corwin, the beautiful dog-faced dog, Brindlebeast of Silmar, until he's had a chance to sniff you thoroughly. He may bark ferociously, but if you ignore him, he will move quickly to the sniffery. Once he has determined by scent that you are not a bear, he will lose all interest and lie down on the cool tile floor. If you reach for him before he has fully inspected you, though, he may snap at your hand. Not in a ferocious, skin-breaking kind of way, but in a gentle, scolding, get your hand the hell away from my face sort of way. There is a chance that he will not bark at all. Some days he uses his indoor voice, a low, conversational, baying sort of row, row, row. The sound can be soothing when heard on its own. If you hear that voice, you will not hear it on its soothing own. Lord Buckley Sweetlips, greatest of all Dane mutts, the dinosaur-slaying dog. His theme song is part of his name. Will bark loudly and insistently. We know he is a big shiny black dog with big shiny white teeth, but his intention, entirely loving, is to express his desire to be scratched about the neck and shiny-toothed face. His barking may always be translated to either, Corwin is barking, Corwin is barking, Corwin is barking, or, why aren't you loving me? Hello, why aren't you loving me? We encourage you to pet him, and once you do, he will take over the encouragement on his own. He will insist. Feel free to continue petting him. We suggest that you sit down in one of the chairs or on the couch. If you do not sit, he may jump at you energetically in his eagerness to show his love. If you are a man, he will jump twice. Once to punch you in the testicles, bending you slightly, and then again to reach your face with his tongue. If you are a woman, he will jump only once, punching you in the breasts and gaining access to your face simultaneously. Lord Buckley has impeccable aim. If you sit, you will be punched less. A position near the piano may also save you injury. There, Buckley can stand upright at the upright, his paws ploinking away at the keys as he cranes upward to kiss you while you stand without nearly as much genital punching. You would be advised not to lean forward during Lord Buckley's ecstatic greeting. His affection is real, his disposition entirely sweet, but his physical control and timing are those of a furry drunk. He won't bite, but he will kiss you with a toothy abandon, slamming his pointy canines into your face with joyous force. If you have ever seen me with bloody spots on my forehead and earlobe, and received the mystifying explanation that I cut myself shaving, you have been fed a stock line. The truth is, those injuries are caused when my adored and adoring Lord Buckley Sweetlips, greatest of all Danemuts, the dinosaur-slaying dog, has greeted me with unbridled enthusiasm. He is a dog of love, but sometimes he loves with teeth. I realized only after I hit send that my instructions were really composed in the hopes that my parents might reconsider their visit. My mother and I had some relationship issues that needed to be worked out, and over the years I preferred to let things fester and stew, occasionally lashing out in passive-aggressive fashion by writing a play or a short story that explored my resentments and animosities in an unassailable format, rather than in open dialogue. I pretended in this way to exercise my demons through my art, or even that I hoped to spark rather than to avoid discussion. I feigned interest in a conflict that might then lead to resolution and closure. I am not that noble. There was no purity of intention. As I struggled with my inner voices, I struck at nerves, at emotional pressure points, inexcusably, sometimes striving only to inflict pain as a way of testing my mother's love. Part of the resentment and rage I expressed came from the embarrassment, the shame of a grown man still craving approval and acceptance from his mother. Unconscious ploys, unconscientiously deployed, inevitably fail. My parents, amused by the instructions about the dogs, arrived. As it turned out, they found the dogs on their best behavior. We took them out to the park in the morning to tire them out some, the dogs, not my parents. Also, we entered the house through the garage carrying luggage to create an obstruction as we passed through the kitchen, forcing the dogs to back up before us. Buckley stood up to play the piano, ploink, ploink, ploink. Corwin sang his indoor voice greeting. They provided an Edomian-worthy impression of the Huxtable kids, putting on a little nightclub routine worked up for the entertainment of the grandparents. My parents pretended to love and care about our dogs as much as we wanted them to. They called them the grand dogs. My father had long, soulful conversations with them about his hopes for their futures, perhaps in academia. He expressed uncertainty as to whether Buckley could qualify for Ivy League, though Corwin, he felt quite certain, could manage Harvard or Yale if he applied himself. Then he added, of course you won't be able to apply yourself, but I'm sure one of your parents will help with the essays. My mother and I had some opportunity to talk, but didn't really discuss the things we needed to. We traded dark Chekhovian subtext over the 3-day visit. She said, if you untuck your shirt a little bit, it won't show your weight so much. But she meant, I'm sorry I wasn't a better mother. And what I heard was, good God, you've gotten fat. At one point she actually said, I haven't always been the best mother. But right then what she really meant was, please tell me you're okay. I said, are you sure you wouldn't rather stay at a hotel? But what I meant was, tell me you love me and you're proud of me. It was that kind of weekend. On Sunday evening, we played bloodthirsty Scrabble, my parents and I, cramming the board with tiny words, double and triple valued, overlapping one another tightly. Mom and I drank scotch together, and when I left a triple word score open for her to use, I said, "How much do you love me right now?" She said, "Oh, fixed 16, tripled is 48, plus 10 for fan and 2 for it is 60. And she wrote down the score without answering the question, because given the context, it seemed rhetorical. Or perhaps the answer to how much she loved me was 60. Then, after the game, my parents scratched the dogs and hugged my wife, and I walked them out to their rented car. My mother kissed me on the cheek, smelling of Dewar's, and said, "It was really great to see you. The dogs are wonderful." She got a little misty-eyed as she let me pour her into the passenger seat and added, "I really do love you, you know." I said, "I love you too, Mom." But we both sounded a little bit obligated and apologetic when we said it. It was true, for both of us, true, but a little bit incomplete. Familial relationships, lifelong affections come with history and backstory and subtext and overvalued words. We can't help it. We love one another, yet somehow always we love with teeth. Thank you.
Wow. Love with teeth. God, that's a great line. Thank you so much for sharing that. I need to get dogs. I need to expand my family. I've always had cats, and now I don't have anything. I want to get dogs. I want to build that family. It's so remarkable. That's wonderful. I have it all there. All right. Our next performer is a storyteller, an actor, an improv instructor who lives in Valley Glen, which is a fancy name for an edge of Van Nuys. There you go. Connections. She's been in shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Sharp Objects, Parks and Rec, Curb Your Enthusiasm, SWAT, lots of stuff. Oh, and Community, too, which was a great show. She enjoys walking, reading, and dinner parties. Loretta appreciates being part of the Los Angeles storytelling community, both as a storyteller and a story listener. She's a veteran of Tell It, among other LA-based shows such as Strong Words, Expressing Motherhood, and Rant and Rave. And she is a Pisces. So please welcome back the fabulous Loretta Fox.
So fancy with a mic and stool for my water and my son's playing rap and I'm enjoying a PB and mayo. My husband's out with his pizza posse. He's not big on rap or PB and mayo. Mom, I want a baddie with a juicy ass. He says stuff that may or may not be intended to rile me up. Daniel, girls don't like that. I know. I used to be one. He turns little baby up a notch. I got different kind of bitches I keep getting caught with hoes. Oh, little baby. As parents, my husband covers sports and leisure. I handle sex and death. It works. Buddy, do you understand the difference between bitches and hoes? Not really. A bitch is who a guy shacks up with. His wife, girlfriend, baby mama. A hoe is who he flaunts on the side and buys jewelry for. Later, I Google bitch and hoe. Hoes fuck everybody. Bitches fuck everybody but you. And hoes get things done to them. Bitches just get things done. Honey, a juicy ass is great, but there's way more to it. I've never had a juicy ass. Jesus, Mom, stop. It's terrific exercise mothering a 90% straight, quirky, and reckless boy in this era of TikTok, cancel culture, and fuck the patriarchy. It's a can of worms. A week later, I beeline to the living room and announce to my son and his two bros, I'm finally dealing with my childhood trauma. They look up from their phones. I regret the share and return to my bedroom. My growing up years were challenging. My husband calls my family a Eugene O'Neill play. Without the laughs. Rap has cracked a memory window, along with Daniel being beyond the most vulnerable childhood years. My experiences weren't unique. Trauma wasn't even a word when I was a kid. I wasn't caged or seared with cigarettes, but my notions of safety and what's right were compromised. As a parent, it's hard to resist comparing your methods to your parents'. It's a trip. I won't cop to being a helicopter mom, but I've maintained a hawk eye, especially during the high-risk kidnapping years and when he was a young actor on TV. I ask a lot of questions. LA isn't conducive for old-school free-range parenting. When I was coming up, free-range wasn't a style when it came to raising chickens, cattle, or humans. It just was. My folks were of the silent generation. They worked hard and kept quiet. Their kids, like me, had an abundance of chores, like painting the entire house, and space, like days when nobody knew where I was. There were few questions asked. Day one of 5th grade at Catholic school, I was assigned a boyfriend. This entailed cheering for Kevin Hickey when he entered the playground. Kevin, he's our man. Let's give him a mighty hand. Mike Vore wanted to go with me from 5th grade on. He had a dramatic streak. Once our neighbor ordered him to quit manhandling her because Mike was getting rough on my porch. I appreciated how manhandle hid its meaning. In 7th grade, Mrs. Cadigan summoned me to her desk when Mike carved my name in his forearm with a paperclip. I sat at the smart table and Mike at the dumb table, so she figured I should have better control over that situation. It was the 70s. Mark Shermer offered to let me sit on his face in freshman history class. And Kevin Trammell drove me to call him a briar when he trapped me against my locker. I was nearly kidnapped at least once. A teenager named Harold, whom I learned was simple-minded, snuck up on me in our backyard when I was breaking in my new two-piece. I was home with the mumps. My mother's psychic powers kicked in and she flew out holding a steaming iron. Our sexy Jewish neighbor, Pauline, went after Harold in her Camaro and drove him to the Dayton PD. She might have had her gun. Here's the deal. I thought I must be asking for it. Boys couldn't help themselves when it came to pretty girls who don't scream no. Adult sexual attention was even trickier. As a little girl, my dad's buddy Duke offered me dollars to sit on his lap. At 12, my friend Kelly's dad whispered, "My Cinderella princess." Mr. Genovese needed a hug for a bowl of his minestrone. At 13, Dad began taking me to Stouffer's restaurant and let me order whatever I wanted. I always started with a shrimp cocktail. I suspected he hoped people thought we were something other than family. I let it slide because we never had seafood at home, except canned salmon patties. which I love. By junior year, I worked it. I hated cheerleading and threatened discrimination until Coach Body made me and Marietta football managers. 4 years ago, I received a letter from the Archdiocese revealing that Coach had become a Catholic brother, was imprisoned for molestation, and was now deceased. Brothers were something. Brother Fritz Kraft often invited me, Marietta, Kevin Hickey, and Mark Shermer to the church basement for a flirty Friday lunch of homemade tuna salad and saltines. It was delicious. He also gave us pot. He came to our parties and passed out on the lawn. He once cornered me in Tom Clark's kitchen. I grabbed a paring knife. God knows where Fritz is now. My mom considered me a comrade more than a responsibility. She blithely pimped me out. Freshman year, she picked me up from school one day and spotted Jerry Schmalstick. Heavens, that gorgeous creature, those plaid pants. You must date him, sweetheart. Mother, I'm not allowed to date until I'm 16, and he's a senior. I don't care, Lorianne. That butt, that smile. I did date Jerry that summer. He asked me if I'd wait for him if he joined the Army. Mom was that mom. Like from after-school specials, eager to share joints and dance to Freebird. She had a thing for my manhandler, Mike Vore. I'd come home, and they'd be in the kitchen nibbling Ritz crackers. She regularly pleaded his case. Sweetie, he adores you. He even cries over you. Give him a chance. Later, when Dad and she were murmuring about divorce, she brought me along to happy hours and arty things with her male friends. I started calling her Darlene. Darlene bought me negligees. Darlene talked badly about my father. Darlene spent a lot of time in bed. Mom was a delicate beauty with a romantic constitution. My dad, Larry, was tall, dark, and handsome. The darkness included his sense of humor and urge to bully. He'd routinely had his ass kicked by his older brother, Phil. Now, I'm not sure how I learned this, but it wasn't from Dad. He was an unrealized artist, and she an undiscovered muse. Makes sense that I'm creative and gravitate toward the macabre. Larry and Darlene married at 21. On a trip home in my early 30s, Dad implied over several Chardonnays at Urban Suburbans that they were 20 when I was conceived. He had deep guilt over what I assured him was no big whoop. I made a sort of peace with him that night, seeing him more as a peer. It's no surprise that my boy's scoot into adulthood correlates with these reflections. We're close that way. I was 40 when he came along, and I've really let him get to know me. I continue telling him to put the phone down, make your bed, stop smoking weed, and girls don't like that. Whether he appreciates it or not, I'll keep asking questions and discussing what's right and safe, what girls want and don't. I know. I was a girl once. Thank you.
Wow. The journeys that we go on, families, past. Ugh. Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That was...
I didn't laugh very much. It's supposed to be funny.
We were having images, and
I know, I felt
I was like, oh my God,
right.
this poor gal. It was lovely. It was lovely. Thank you so much. All right. Before we get to our last storyteller, I just want to say a few thank yous. First of all, I want to thank Lisa Picot and David Kaufman, who run the Young Actor Workspace, for hosting this show. I want to thank our wonderful videographer, Sonia Bankston, back there in the corner. And, of course, Erica Bloomfield, who helps me put the show on every time. She's my right-hand person. And, of course, all of you for being here and spending your evening with us. I really appreciate it. Can't thank you enough. All right? Be sure you sign our mailing list before you go and get a book. And if you have any questions or if you're interested in participating and telling a story in the show, talk to me. All right? And our next list of themes and topics will go out in January. Everything else is pretty full up until the end of the year. But we always love inviting new people from all different walks of life. All right, our final storyteller. Julia is a writer, storyteller, and improv comedian who has taken the stage at the Moth Grand Slam. She's won the Moth Grand Slam, Story Smash, the storytelling game show, and Risk. And she's elated to be returning to tell it. We love it every time she comes and plays with us. So please welcome the lovely Julia Lechner.
Thanks, everyone. Like many couples, my husband and I discussed becoming parents someday. We talked about coaching the sports teams of our future hypothetical children, starting new traditions together, and how we'd form a close circle of friends and a sense of community with other couples navigating parenthood for the first time. So, a few years ago, after we eloped, it was time to start trying, which is like normal intimacy, but now you really mean it. And that is when my husband and I began our stint as one of those married couples on a fertility journey. Our fertility journey involved things like trying every single tip I read on the internet. Eat Brazil nuts, pineapple cores, and extra expensive vitamins. Cut out coffee, quit drinking, pee on this, take your temperature down there, pop some Mucinex, drink magical tea, prop your hips up, use the special lubricant. But also make sure we're totally relaxed and definitely orgasmed during this completely natural and enjoyable lovemaking session. Eggies and spermies are happier if we both climax in unison. Every month that goes by, I question more and more. Do I really want to be a mom this badly, or am I just becoming obsessed with not failing at this? Parenthood seems like a fun, albeit very hard, new challenge for us to conquer together, but the passing months without success give me more time to wonder whether it's all worth it. To become wrapped up in trying everything possible to bring a human being into this world that will ultimately refer to their mother as cringe. I already think my kid's an asshole, and they're not even here yet. When my spouse and I were on our fertility journey, I became very attuned to when my body was the most teed up to be impregnated, which is only a few days a month. This limited window led to us doing the deed during some interesting times. Between work meetings on Zoom, while experiencing full body aches and fevers after getting vaccinated, or rushing home when we already had plans. Any challenges we experience while trying to conceive prompt unsolicited pep talks from medical professionals and loved ones. Just get back up on the horse and try again. I guess my husband is the horse in this scenario. Anyway, my father-in-law and brother-in-law plan to visit Los Angeles while my husband and I are on this fertility journey. A few weeks beforehand, I mentioned to my husband that we can totally skip the trying to have kids thing if they're in town during our fertile window. And we decide we'll wait and see. It probably won't even be an issue. And we prepare for their visit. They come, not sexually, like they arrive at our apartment from the Midwest. And we take them out to trendy restaurants, historic landmarks, Hollywood photo ops. All the while I'm peeing on sticks and monitoring the signs, and then it happens. one afternoon, while all 4 of us are together in our apartment, my body indicates it's in the fertile window. I should have known it would happen this weekend. I exit the bathroom of our apartment and I quietly indicate the update to my spouse, while his father and 20-something brother are debating which Pink's hot dog toppings are the best. We have some brief, unplanned downtime before our dinner reservations, and my husband and I quickly exchange whispers a few feet away from his family members. Should we? What's the test say? We don't have to, we can skip this month. No, let's do it, that's a whole month down the drain. Okay, guys, we're a little tired from all this tourist stuff. We're gonna take a nap before we get back out there. Do you two wanna watch that movie you were talking about? My husband turns on the TV and presses play on an illegally downloaded screener of Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And then he and I walk into our bedroom, which is literally 5 feet away from the couch and television in our small Hollywood apartment. Our announcement feels abrupt to me, and I wonder what our 2 visitors may be thinking, but also my spouse and I become pros at laser-focused lovemaking during the most inopportune times, so we're taking it all in stride. I scoot to the edge of the bed and put my legs up and spread them, like I'm at a gynecologist appointment, and my husband is before me, not wanting to mount or rock the bed in any way, because no sound has ever seemed as loud as sound does in this moment. Towel down, special lube on, we make what can be looked back upon as the quietest, quickest sex session with the least amount of movement possible, so as not to aggravate the squeaky bed or the creaky floors. All the while we whisper sweet nothings like, "This is really weird, but I love you so much. Please be as fast as possible. You're wonderful. You look beautiful. I am so sorry this is happening right now. Just wait, this will totally be the month it happens." Wedding vows prepared me for many things, but not this. As my husband makes microscopic thrusts, while I hear his family watching a Charles Manson massacre steps away from our marital bed, I try to visualize an egg and a sperm meeting in a beautiful meadow, or whatever those fertility YouTube videos had told me to do. We finish, thank God, and my husband gets dressed, kisses me, adjusts the pillow under my hips, and leaves the room to attend to our visitors, while I lie there like a Thanksgiving turkey and let everything marinate or whatever for a bit before moving on as well. That month isn't the month it happens, and the happy ending for us is that after more trying and 2 pregnancy losses, we both totally agree we are done trying to have kids. When my second miscarriage begins, I know in that moment that I'll never be pregnant again. I want my life back, a life that I loved before I started trying to add children to it. It's enough and it's complete without having kids. It feels like a relief finally making that decision to stop pursuing parenthood, no longer living in uncertainty each month as to whether our lives will blow up and change forever. As I see the parents around us and in our lives, I can't imagine wanting it badly enough to figure out what the next steps would be to make it happen for us. It's like we're a different version of the couple we were before, reborn as a childless or a child-free or whatever you want to call it couple. With each passing year, we feel reaffirmed, even if we're not following the life roadmap we thought we would, and most of the people in our lives, and quite frankly, the world have followed. It's different and it's uncharted, but in many ways, the fun is now we can make our lives entirely what we want them to be. And now, if we want to fuck 5 feet away from one of our dads, it's because we want to do that. Like the freaky people we are, and not because of some fertility journey. That journey may be over for us, but our adventure is just beginning. Thank you.
Maria Lechner. Wow. I had a brief bout with parental instincts. When I was in my 30s, I was working at the Children's Museum and seeing all these dads and their moms and the kids, and I was like, wow, that would be nice. But then I got over it when this kid threw up in the bathroom. Like, no, it's not gonna happen. And it wasn't possible to do at that time anyway. Thank you all so much. I want all the storytellers to come up here and take another bow. Let's have a big hand. Thanks again for being here. Please drive home safe. If you're interested in telling a story in the show, talk to me. Because if you have a story to share, don't keep it to yourself. Tell it! We'll be here for a little while, cleaning up and schmoozing. There's more wine, lots of wine. Thank you.